Hello, my name is Sydney, and where do I begin? It's been quite a while since I've checked in with you about my writing and what I've been working on. And so what I bring to you today is a writing vlog which covers the last 2 or 3 months or so of different writing videos, different writing sessions, working on my different projects and having all these different revelations and a bit of quarantine traveling, which I definitely didn't want to do, but had to do. And so I figure let's just get into it. Good morning. It is Monday, February 15th. Happy President's Day. It is 8:32 in the morning, and I'm happy to have the day off work today. So I've decided to use the day just to work on my writing. Last time we chatted, I said that I wouldn't post a YouTube video until I had something to say, and I had that whole spiel about just sort of a creative rebirth that I've been having in terms of like my priorities with writing and like what I want out of it. Go ahead and check out that video if you haven't already seen it, because I don't really want to rehash all the details in it, but sort of as an epilogue idea to everything that I said there, these last few months have been an opportunity for reflection and really kind of coming back to mindfulness about writing. Like, why am I doing it? What I love about it. You know, it's good for me. It's good for my soul. I've not been reminded of that just through like working through these practices with myself, but also by watching my past videos, and just to see myself talking so passionately and so like curiously and even sometimes very heartbrokenly about all the various aspects of writing. It just reminds me of how I feel about writing, you know, the highs and the lows, and I love it all, for better or for worse. Having the luxury of going back and watching myself talk about different things that I've gone through with writing, I just feel like if I don't document this chapter of my writing life, then I'm doing a disservice to future Sydney when she's going through similar issues again, and, you know, instead of reinventing the wheel, trying to come up with a new solution, then I can look back on this video or other videos and just do me some good. So, surprise, surprise, nobody is surprised, not even me. I'm working on my story Pitchfork. I have not talked about Pitchfork on this channel, and I haven't even worked on it in a long time. I think the last time I talked about it might have been like late summer, early fall of 2019, but the last time I worked on it was February of last year, so a year ago, right before the whole coronavirus stuff started. But even then, it was just a very flash in the pan type of, I worked on it maybe like a couple of days, and I did actually a significant amount of work in that couple of days, but then I sort of just dropped it, and I don't even remember what happened after that. But I wasn't super in the headspace to write this time last year, but I've been working on it now since the 12th of February, and today's the 15th, so that's when I picked it up. I sort of, right before I picked it up, I had, in watching my past videos, I'd watch one video and I'd be talking about Project Stormcloud, and I would finish that video like, oh, I should work on that, and then I'd watch another video talking about Hotel Story, and then I'd be like, oh, I should work on that, and then I'd watch another one talking about, you know, my Soul Dust essay collection, and I would think, oh, I should work on that. And so basically I was just like going back and forth, and Pitchfork was another video another project I was talking about in one of the videos. Ultimately, I decided to just kind of look through Pitchfork and see what's going on. And very quickly, I decided that I needed to just pump the brakes, like slow. Like, if I'm going to be getting back into Pitchfork, I need to make sure that I'm doing it right. So the number one mantra for working on Pitchfork, draft 6, mind you, which draft 6 is what I started working on in fall of 2019. So this is just picking up the baton and running with it. The main mantra to focus on is patience, because I tend to, like, when I go back into these stories, especially Pitchfork, because it has been so notoriously complex of a story. So, and also I find myself sort of being like, okay, but what if I'm taking my time with this story and then tomorrow I'm completely uninterested in this story and I want to work on something else? And I'm just trying to remind myself, yes, be patient, but also take it one writing session at a time. What am I working on right now in this writing session? I don't need to think about the next writing session, you know, until I get there. In trying to work slowly, I am doing what I'm terming smart and sustainable plotting. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that I am trying to think very meaningfully and thoroughly about any changes that I need to make. And even before getting to changes, I'm trying to think meaningfully and thoroughly about the story's building blocks, so that way I can very meticulously lay that foundation of the story, and then what I create on top of it is sustainable for the long run, so that way I don't end up having to make changes, the same changes over and over again. So it's very different from what I've been working on with my last two projects, where I was doing a lot of sort of discovery writing and, you know, figuring things out as I go. This time I'm like full on planning, I think. So my action plan so far, what I've done. So I started with reconfiguring all of my notes. That seems to be the best and most efficient way for me to get back into any story, is to just look at my notes in OneNote, reorganize things, move things around, because when I do that, I'm reading through every note, every bullet, every line on the page. So I've done that. A couple other things, and I've made a to-do list, or rather I've revised the to-do list that I had listed in here. A couple other things I have to do is review my magic system and just make sure I'm concrete on what the rules are. There's a couple of rules that I've had to change. You know, as I've changed the rules, I've made sure that those rule changes are reflected in my notes and in the plot and in other aspects of the world. And then eventually I'll get to like plotting, like looking at my plot that I have right now, and then there's a new plot element I want to weave through that I think will sort of bring things together a bit better. And so I have to think of some new plot scenes to write. So it is 4:43 p.m. now, and it's a bit dark in here. It's been gray all day, and the sun is going to start setting quite soon, I think. I just wanted to sort of recap what I've done today. I don't know that I'm done for the day yet necessarily. I probably should be, because I am feeling a little burned out, and I'm not sure if it's necessarily just because of writing or if it's just because I've been cooped up all day in the apartment. I didn't end up going outside. I mainly did a lot of character work. So finalizing some character backstories and whatnot. I made a couple of decisions, like I just made a couple of decisions about things that I wasn't so sure about. And I finalized all the names of all of my characters. And I also like went into my magic system, and I didn't review the whole magic system, but I reviewed a couple of elements of it, such as some of the types of characters who use magic. I like kind of I fixed that, so it makes sense. And there were a couple of terms that I used. I found myself that I was using like two different terms to mean the same things. I do need to go through and just finalize the rules of magic, but I don't feel like doing that today. Hello, it is the next day, and they promised us snow and ice, but all we got was ice and rain. So today what I've been doing is a little bit of research into, so this is like a historical fantasy type of novel, and I've been doing research into a couple of the locations. One of my characters, a lot of her perspective takes place in a certain place, and so I want to make sure that I get a lot of the details about that right. And then I started reading through my idea pages. It's not a linear process by any means. It's not like I can do all of the character work, then all of the world building, then all of the plotting. You know, it's just, they all feed into one another. Now that the light is fading. That's an album by Maggie Rogers. So it's like almost 5 p.m. on Tuesday. All day I've been so confused that it's Tuesday because I had yesterday off, but I actually thought today was Wednesday, not Monday, so I don't even know. I just went for a bit of a walk. I sort of got to this point where I was like, okay, I don't feel like working on my story. I don't want to just watch a bunch more YouTube videos. And that was nice. It was just like a little half-hour walk around some of the buildings and stuff that I live near. Mainly a bunch of parking lots, but still a nice walk. It's a very misty day, not too cold, even though it's like in the 30s. It was nice because I found myself thinking, as I often do, about ideas that I'd been like ruminating over for the last few days, but I'd been ruminating over those ideas pretty incoherently in my own head. Like the thoughts were just sort of running around, and I wasn't really able to pin them down and like express them in a meaningful way that I could like take in the meaning and like understand it and then put it to action. It was just like just like a chaos in my head. But then when I went for the walk, it was sort of like meditation, where you just sort of, where you pick a thought and just focus on it. Instead of trying to have your mind be blank, you take your thoughts one at a time and you think about them more in depth, so you can actually like understand them and like get to the root of them. Honestly, I don't go for walks enough. So I was thinking about how I've been tackling this revision of Pitchfork. And I realized that while I am highlighting, stressing, all capital letters, the concept of patience with this draft, taking the time to go through everything and make sure I'm doing it right, I don't want to move too slowly that I get bored. So I think it's about finding the balance. Hey, so it's like 20, 30 minutes later, and it's quite a bit darker. I've put on a sweater, I've put on the light in the room. Instead of working half on a to-do list, half on like abstract ideas of what I need to do, I need to just like write down more concretely all the things that I know I need to do as much as is possible. Because there's some things that are just floating around in my head that I don't even realize are floating around in my head. And yeah, I'm never going to pin those down. And I think that starts with at the end of a writing session, or even just at the end of the day, come back to my notes and just be like, okay, here are some things that I know I need to work on next. Develop this plot point next. Do some research on this aspect of the world next. Just like a few concrete things, so that way the next day when I sit down for a writing session and I pick up my story, I know exactly what I'm doing. Because I think if I spend way too much time, I think, at pretty much every writing session, just kind of faffing around, not really sure what to work on. Like, it takes me a good, 30 minutes to an hour before I feel like I'm in the zone and in the headspace to work on my story. And I feel like I could probably cut out a lot of that time just by knowing what I'm supposed to be doing next. I can just dive right in if I see that to-do list item and I'm like, okay, got it. It's a whole nother story on whether or not I feel like doing any of the items on the to-do list. That's something that we're never going to get a hold on that, really. Hello, it is Friday, March 5th, and as you can see, my surroundings are a little different. That's because I'm in a hotel room. I don't want to get into it, but basically, let's say I had to travel. I didn't necessarily want to travel with COVID and everything going on, but I kind of had to. And so I got to my destination and I'm here for 2 weeks to quarantine. So that's fun. That's great fun. But anyway, I just wanted to check in because right now I'm working on Pitchfork. I haven't checked in with the vlog in a couple of weeks or something. So basically what I did was I went through my revisions one step at a time. I started by going through all of my notes, going through all of my ideas and figuring out, okay, what are the changes that I want to make in this story. And overall, there's not a whole lot of major ones. There's more just like smaller things that I want that really just require me adding like certain lines into certain scenes to bring ideas into the story that weren't there before, or to even connect ideas. Like, I've changed the role of one character who was really just like a throwaway minor character, but I've brought them back to connect them into this major part of the story. So now it's like these two threads, which were completely different, are now joined together, which is really nice. I'm also filming on my phone because I didn't bring my video camera. But so I did that, and then I went through. There was one character who is a main character, but I was gonna have him have a different relationship with my protagonist, but I ultimately decided that I didn't want to do that for this book. It might be something I do in a later book. I started reading my draft when I got here to quarantine. We're on day 4 of quarantine. My boyfriend is here too. And I started reading my draft and I realized, okay, we've got 10 days left of quarantine. How cool would it be? Because, we need things to do, right? How cool would it be to finish reading my entire draft by the end of this 2-week quarantine, which would mean some really intensive work. Hello, so it is day 7 of quarantine, day 7 of 14 days, and boy, I am doing something completely different than I was the last few times. Yes, I am in my pajamas because what do I need to wear? What do I need to dress up for? I literally haven't left this room in 7 days and I won't be leaving for another 7. What I am doing now is I am reading through my entire draft so far of the hotel story. There are 196 pages in Microsoft Word, and I'm on page 173. I started reading through it yesterday, and Well, here we are. We're continuing our read through. And let me just say, I love this story so much. I think it's so much fun. If I do say so myself, I think a lot of the mystery elements and the clue elements are very clever. As I'm getting towards the end, I've noticed how I remember how I felt writing it, where I knew I was going to have to start tying up some loose ends. And I feel like that's sort of the doubt or whatever that I was feeling about doing that. I feel like I noticed that in the draft somehow, like something is there's a slight disconnect. But anyway, I stopped working on Pitchfork because I found that as I was reading it, a lot of what I read in the beginning is prose that I wrote and rewrote over the last several years. But I just feel like the writing style is from a Sydney from many years ago. It's not reflective of who I am as a writer now. And then I was watching a couple of my older videos from like 2.5 years ago about refilling my creative well and being indecisive about what I'm working on. And that's sort of how I feel now. It's funny how I could go back and watch these videos, really because I haven't watched a particular one in a while, but then really it's what it ends up being is exactly the video that I need to watch. So I watched the one where I was indecisive and I talked about that and I worked through it, and I watched another one where I was talking about refilling my creative well. And both of those videos basically told me that yes, I am indecisive and here are some ways to fix that. But also, I think I'm at a point where I do need to fill my creative well, which basically just means like I need to consume creative content that other people have created and not just create and output. I need to have some input as well. So reading books, watching movies, that kind of thing, which, being in a quarantine environment is kind of perfect for that. Like, we've got a bunch of movies. We've got some Harry Potter movies and Lord of the Ring movies, and where I am, all of the Studio Ghibli movies are on Netflix. And so, and we've got a couple other streaming services as well. So like there's an infinite amount of things to watch. But then I started reading my hotel story, and now I just want to finish reading that, and I don't know where I'm going to go with this. If I'm going to continue writing and planning it, or if I'm just going to like put it down and pick up a book instead. But just kind of like how the past few months I've been trying to take away the pressure I've been putting on myself to get published, I also need to now transition into taking the pressure off of myself to produce and to write all the time and to be creative. Like, sometimes you just need to chill. Write when you feel like writing, don't write when you feel like writing, but try to balance that with reading, because I used to be the kind of person where if I wasn't reading, I was writing, and if I wasn't writing, I was reading. Like, I was usually always doing one or the other in my free time. But now I'm just kind of like, I haven't done a whole lot of reading the last few months, and even as I've been getting back into writing, I haven't been doing a whole lot of reading. So I need to like get in the habit. I need to build up my attention span to be able to hold a book longer than 5 minutes. And I think that that'll help a lot when it comes to writing, in terms of refilling my creative well and just making me feel good in general, because it always feels good to read. It's not an activity that I do where I feel like I've wasted my time. So yeah. And of course, you can just learn about the craft while you're doing it. You learn about ways to form sentences, and you learn about ways to string together plots and that kind of thing. And that's never a bad thing. By the way, we have a view of a theme park outside of our window with a roller coaster and a Ferris wheel, and it looks like the park is operating. So it's fun to watch. Too bad we can't be there. ah. Greetings from day 9 of 14 of quarantine. It is Wednesday, the 10th of March, and it's like 4 p.m. here. And I just wanted to catch you up on what I've been doing the last day or two, writing wise. We finished watching the Harry Potter movies last night. We watched the seventh one, part one, the day before, and we watched the final movie last night. And I haven't seen these movies since they came out in theaters, so like the last couple of months we've been rewatching them. And gosh, I don't remember enjoying them this much. Like, I liked them before, but just sort of like as a general movie enjoyment. But this time I was like, oh my gosh, these are amazing. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to reread the books or if I want to wait a bit, because having just watched the movies, it's like fresh in my head. So I've been working on Hotel Story, and I reached 50,000 words yesterday, I think. which is great because it only took me like 3 or 4 months to do that. Originally, I was aiming to hit 50,000 words in November, and that didn't end up happening. And then I pushed it to December, and then in the middle of December, I just decided that I didn't feel like working on Hotel Story anymore, which is perfectly fine because that story is just about having fun. So if I wasn't having fun with it at the time, or if I was ready to move on to something else, like I was in December, I was ready to move on to Stormcloud, then it's okay, you know? So here in quarantine, I brought all my stuff for Pitchfork. Like, I brought my notebook and I brought my scene list that I had printed out, and I was prepared to read through the whole draft and make the changes that I needed to make. But I think I'd read like 6 or 7 chapters of that, and I decided that I wasn't ready to make the changes for that just yet. I think I need to, or rather, the changes that I was intending to make, there were other changes that need to be made in addition to those that I wasn't even aware of, particularly to do with the writing style and like the character's voice. Like, they weren't jiving with me this time, and I think that's because those are words that I've written years ago. Some of the words are new. It's like a mix of old and new words, like from like even from like one sentence to the next. It's a mix of old and new words, and my writing style has changed in terms of the way I word sentences and whatnot. And so reading my old writing and mixing with my new writing, like, it didn't flow. It was a little choppy. And while I loved what was happening plot wise, I need to reword the prose and the main character's voice. Like, she was sort of annoying me a little bit. That's a strong way to put it. It was more that I want the way I want her voice to come across. It wasn't coming across that way, and so I need to reflect on that as well. I need to maybe develop not so much her character, but develop the way I portray her character on the page, if that makes sense. Like the qualities that I show and the way that I word her thoughts and whatnot. I need to develop that a bit more, I think. But anyway, I'm just gonna take a little bit of a break from that while I work on Hotel Story, having a lot of fun. Yeah, so like 3-4 days ago, I read through the entire draft in like basically 2 sittings, like, and it was 48,511 words when I was reading through it. By the time I finished my read through, I added maybe about 150 words to the draft. And then when I got to the last chapter, which was chapter 18, I had been in the middle of a scene when I put the draft down in December. So it picked up in that middle of the scene. It was nice to have read the whole draft through, so I knew kind of what I was trying to do with the draft and where, like, all the clues that I had laid, all the character qualities and thoughts and motivations and stuff that I had put in the plot were all there. I could refresh myself on those, and so I finished that scene. That was great. And then I finished the whole chapter, and then I proceeded to start the next chapter, the first scene, and I wrote the first scene of the next chapter, of chapter 19. So currently the word count stands at 50,735. So it's nice to finally pass 50,000 words. It's nice to finally pass 200 pages with the way that I format my manuscript. So the other thing that changed was that, so originally it was supposed to be one standalone novel, part 1, part 2, part 3. The fact that part 1 is over 50,000 words and I'm still writing it, I'm expecting it'll probably be 65,000 by the time I finish this draft, but then I have to go back and add in a plot line for some of the other characters, so that could bump up the overall draft when it's finished to like 80,000 words, which is basically a novel at this point, you know? So now I'm thinking, because part of it is that everything that was happening, I was grandly underestimating how much words I would need to tell this story. And it's not even so much a matter of line editing. It's just that with all the clues and the mystery and everything, it takes time to develop. And there's a lot of background, a lot of character history, a lot of character relations that I have to develop. It's taking me more words to write all of it than I was expecting, which is totally fine because I was discovery writing it. So there's things I didn't even know, you know, until I was writing them. And so what I'm trying to say is that this part 1 in the first timeline, the present day timeline, is going to probably be book 1, and it's basically, this is going to end up being a trilogy. Looking ahead, I have more of an idea of what happens in the second timeline the more that I write this first timeline. And in terms of the third timeline, I know some things, but I don't know a lot of things. The other tricky thing about this being 3 books instead of 1 is that I sort of, in a way, have to, if I want to be able to continue discovery writing them, I almost have to write all 3 of them before I can like really go back and edit the previous ones. You know, like before I can really be confident that everything that happens in the first book is still going to be true by the time I write the third book, then like I have to write the third book in order to go back and be like, okay, yes. Like, I'll have to change details in the first book based on what I've written in the third book, if that makes sense. But I also don't want to have to do it like that. I want to be able to just write it and move on from it and then start the next book. You know what I mean? But we'll see. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Right now, I'm just going to focus on finishing the first book, planting seeds for the later books, and then we'll see what happens after that. It's a beautiful day here. I can't believe I haven't gone outside in 9 days. 9 days. We're not allowed to go outside. They bring us food 3 times a day and water. Just take a moment to look at all of the comic books and graphic novels all around me. I mentioned before that I had to travel. So I'm here. I'm at my dad's house. And I'm in his graphic novel sanctuary. But anyway, just wanted to give a quick update on what I'm working on. So, coming to my dad's house, in the past, I have worked on Pitchfork and I've worked on Stormcloud here. Significantly, I've never worked on Hotel Story here. So for some reason, when I got here, even though I had been working on Hotel Story, I had just a feeling that I needed to work on Stormcloud. And so I opened up Stormcloud and I just was thinking about what I wanted to do with it. And I wanted to just have more fun with it in terms of the way I approach writing. And just kind of, figure out what the next scene should be and just have fun with it. And so I've been thinking about that for the last day or two since I've been here. And then this morning I wrote 600 words for the next scene, which was good because the next scene had stumped me before. But in any case, we're making some progress. Slow but steady. Hello. It has been a long time since you and I last talked. Here we are. It is now towards the end of April. It's the 19th, and I just got off of work for the day. And before we really get into this video and like a writing update, I just need to show you my ensemble. First, you can see the glasses, rainbow. You can see the headband, rainbow. Okay, and then wait for this. Oh my gosh. These are my new overalls. I love them so much. They just came in the mail today. So the last time that I wrote for Stormcloud, I picked it up on Friday. The last time I wrote for it was about a month ago. It says, oh wow, I wrote, get this, 95 words on March 20th. And then before that, the last time I wrote was at the beginning of February. And before that was when I was doing that whole Unapologetically creative vlog when I had written 20,000 words. Written or revised 20,000 words in January. And so what happened was I was doing pretty good with that story. I was working on it in January, but then I just kind of got to a scene where I kind of was looking at what would happen next, and I didn't feel confident about it. I wasn't sure what I wanted to happen next. I was about 22,000 words in, and it's that 20 to 30,000 word writing slump, I think, that happens, where the motivation and the energy that you have from starting your book kind of just drops off of a cliff all of a sudden. Whether it's because the excitement, that initial excitement of working on something new dies down, or if it's just because it's at this stage in every story where I sort of just I was really clear on what I wanted to happen in the beginning, and maybe I'm really clear about a few things I want to happen in the middle and later on in the story, but there's this gap here between the beginning and the middle where I'm not totally sure what I want to happen, and I think that's what's happening now. I didn't really outline, because just going back to previous vlogs and talking about discovery writing and whatnot, and even introducing discovery writing to a story that I have plotted largely for the entire time I've been writing it. When I got to this gap, it's okay, obviously I need to kind of outline and figure out what's going to happen next, but I just really didn't feel like it. Or when I tried to outline, just the thoughts were not coming to me. It wasn't very clear to me what I wanted to do. And so even with a bit of brainstorming or world building and other aspects, just kind of figuring out, I mentioned that I had introduced her sisters into this story. And so figuring out, okay, what's the sort of arc of Race's plot versus what's the arc of each of her sisters' plots. Basically, I just still was facing this wall. I didn't know what to do next, so I ended up kind of dropping the story. Once I got out of quarantine, I wasn't feeling the call to work on Hotel Story, but it was fine. I didn't feel the need to like devote too much time to writing because of some other things that were going on, thinking about other aspects of life instead of writing. I was enjoying this mindset of kind of living each day while I'm in it instead of like trying to plan for an uncertain future and getting so obsessed with that idea that I forget to enjoy right now. And so that's something that I've really enjoyed about the last year, probably much in thanks to quarantine, I should say, is that just learning to enjoy today for what it is, you know, whether you're doing the most exciting thing or if you're just kind of chilling on the couch all day, and letting yourself be okay with that, because you don't always have to be, you know, going, being productive. It's okay to just kind of sit down and relax and let yourself rest. Even if you don't feel like you deserve to rest, maybe you feel like you've been resting every day. Like, it's not just physical, you know, sometimes you need to mentally rest as well. Like, you may not even be aware of how much mentally you're dealing with. And, you know, I'm sure we're all probably dealing with a lot of stuff. I know myself, mentally, personally, in my life, I'm dealing with more things than I really ever have in my entire life, good and bad. So what am I doing now? I guess that brings us back to Friday. My boyfriend, now fiance, my fiance had said to me, like, you know, you should get back into writing, because if you give it too long of a break, you're just not going to want to do it anymore at all. I was like, you know, you might be right. Because that's, you know, certainly been the mindset that's kind of almost happened a couple of times. If I give myself, like, it's great to give yourself breaks and all from writing, but if you give yourself too long of a break where you start to become too complacent with not writing, you know, you can tell yourself it's for, you know, reasons A, B, and C, you know, but really you're just gonna have to teach yourself to write all over again and build those habits all over again, which I didn't really want to do. And so Friday, the mood struck me. I opened up Stormcloud, and I am still really happy with what I wrote in January. Like, I'm still really happy with the chapters that I wrote. And so I just basically was trying to figure out, okay, I had started a scene. I needed to know what was going to happen next. So I basically just made myself finish the scene. Didn't have to be good. Didn't have to, like, I mean, like, of course, it had to make sense and whatnot, but it didn't have to be good. It didn't have to be the perfect scene, and it didn't have to be, like, the end-all, be-all. You know, I just needed to basically, for now, get me to the next scene so I can, like, have some forward progress, some forward momentum on this story, because there had just been too long of me sitting on my butt, not being sure what the next scene was. So I just basically wrote the first thing that came to mind. Don't know if I love it or not yet, but it does the job well enough. I don't hate it. Mind you, it's only been like 3 days since I wrote it. So Friday I wrote like 400 words, and then Saturday I wrote almost 400 words. And now today is Monday. I'm sitting down today. It's 4:46 p.m. and I'm going to play some music and do a little bit of writing, drink some tea, and see if I can figure out what the next scene is with Stormcloud. So now my main character is supposed to run into another character who, in this draft, I have not yet introduced her to. Or I haven't even introduced this character, period. So I'm going to get to it. Cheers. I hope you guys really enjoyed that vlog. I've got another video coming to you very soon, which is a lot more recent, in which I'm just working on the one writing project. But I just want to say that one of the things that I worry about with posting my writing videos on YouTube, especially in the last couple of years, is that I jump between my writing projects a lot, and I always kind of feel a little self-conscious, or like I'm doing something wrong whenever I decide to switch projects, even if it's just because I get bored with one story or I just get distracted with the next one. I always feel like I'm doing something wrong when I choose to then switch to that next project that I'm feeling that inspiration for. But I have to remind myself that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with talking about that on YouTube. Like, it's part of the reality. Like, you want to watch a writing vlog? Well, here's a writing vlog. Here is the reality of my writing. It's not always like clean, perfect, like finishing one draft and then picking up the next draft. For some writers that may be the case, but it's not the case for me, and maybe it's not the case for some of you out there. But I'm kind of at this point in my writing career where I am learning new things, and I'm flexing different creative muscles, and I am finding ways to fix what's broken, you know, as best as I can. And it's all a learning experience. So thank you guys so much for watching and sticking with me if you made it this far in the vlog. Give this video a like to support my channel, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Toodaloo.